Welcome to MindSprout. Today, we're kicking off a little mini-series on Andrew Marvell's amazing garden poems. First up is Bermudas, and trust me, it takes us on this wild journey to what seems like a perfect island paradise. And hey, stick around, because in the next couple of videos, we'll be covering Upon Appleton House and the garden, so you're not going to want to miss those.
So the poem just drops us right into this beautiful, kind of mysterious scene. Picture this. You're out in the middle of the ocean, near this hidden island, and all you can hear is a song drifting from a tiny boat. Marvell even says the winds themselves are listening in. It immediately gets you thinking, right? Who could possibly be singing out there?
And that's the big question, isn't it? Luckily, the poem doesn't keep us in suspense for long. We find out that the singers are actually a group of English exiles. These are people who've journeyed all the way across the ocean to find a new home. But here's the twist. Their song? It's not sad at all. It's a song of pure praise.
Okay, and this line, this is really the heart of their whole story. I mean, think about it. To call some remote, wild island far kinder than your own home? Whoa, something must have been seriously wrong back where they came from. What on earth could push people to leave everything behind and find more kindness in a completely unknown place? Well, Marvell gives us the answer pretty quick. This wasn't some fun trip for adventure or to find treasure. No, this was a desperate escape. They were literally running for their lives from some really intense political danger and religious persecution. They were trading a home full of rage for the hope of finding paradise. And the contrast the poem paints is just wow. It's so stark. On one hand, you have their own land, England, which they describe with this incredible phrase, storms and prelates rage. That really captures both the political chaos and the awful religious persecution from church leaders. But this new island, it's safe, it has an eternal spring. I mean, the difference is just night and day. And this line, it gets right to the core of what they believe. For them, this wasn't just some lucky break. Not at all. They are completely convinced that God himself stepped in, guided them through the dangerous waters, and literally placed them on this grassy stage, a safe haven that he built just to protect them from all that fury they ran from.
So what is this place actually like? You know, the one they escaped to? Well, it's a lot more than just a safe spot. The way they describe it, it's a paradise with this almost supernatural level of abundance. This island isn't just a hideout. They see it as a gift from God, a perfect garden made just for them.
And this is where the poem just explodes with all these amazing details. I mean, you can almost taste and see it. We hear about these bright oranges, pomegranates that look like they're stuffed with jewels, and get this, figs and melons that just appear at their feet. Even the birds, the fowls, are described as being sent in care, like a special delivery. It's just a world of overwhelming, easy abundance, from precious trees to valuable stuff just washing up on the shore. And pay attention to how Marvell does this. It's so clever. He doesn't just say, hey, there are oranges. No. He says God hangs them in the shade, making them glow like golden lamps in a green night. It's such a magical, vivid picture, right? It takes a simple piece of fruit and turns it into something totally otherworldly and beautiful.
And this beautiful way of describing things keeps going. When they crack open a pomegranate, what do they see? Not just seeds, but jewels more rich than Ormus shows. Now, Ormus was this legendary, super wealthy Persian trading port. So what they're saying is that what they find in nature here is way more valuable than anything man-made. It tells you everything about their mindset. But here's the thing. For all this incredible natural stuff, the fruits, the jewels, all of it, the poem makes it clear that the island's real treasure is something else completely. It's not something you can hold. It's spiritual. And to these exiles, it's worth more than anything else.
They actually have a name for it, the Gospel's Pearl. Now that's a direct callback to a story in the Bible about a merchant who sells absolutely everything he owns just to buy one perfect pearl. And that tells us exactly what they value most. The greatest treasure God has given them on this coast isn't gold or amazing fruit, it's their faith. And, crucially, the freedom to practice that faith without being afraid.
And that's exactly why they see the whole island as this sacred place. They don't need to go build a church with 4 walls and a roof. Why would they? In their eyes, God has already built them a temple out of the rocks and the trees and the whole landscape. It's like a natural cathedral where they can finally sing his praise freely.
Which, brings us full circle right back to where we started, with the song. The whole poem we've been exploring, that is their song.
And at the very end, the camera kind of pulls back, and we see them again, singing it while they row their boat. And this final image just perfectly captures how they're feeling. They're singing a holy and a cheerful note. It's pure, simple joy and thankfulness. And I love this detail. Even the sound of their oars dipping in the water provides the beat, keeping time for their song. It's like their entire journey has become an act of worship.
So, when you boil it all down, the whole story of the poem is this really simple but super powerful journey. Step 1, they escape all that rage and persecution back home. Step 2, they land in this paradise that's just overflowing with gifts from God. And step 3, what do they do in response? They just pour out all their gratitude in a song of praise. Simple as that. And this song, it isn't just for them. Their biggest hope is that it's so powerful it'll be heard by God, that it'll reach all the way to heaven and then bounce back down to earth, echoing all across the sea for the whole world to hear. It's this powerful message of hope and being saved that they just feel they have to share.
And that really leaves us with one last thing to think about. I mean, sure, Marvell's poem is about this one specific group of people finding a real physical safe haven. But it's also about something bigger, right? It's about that search we all have for a safe place, a place where we can be free, feel thankful, and just find some peace. So it kind of makes you wonder, in a world that's still full of storms, where do we find our own Bermudas today?
Today, we're diving into a poem that's nearly 400 years old, but it holds some surprisingly modern and, frankly, pretty radical ideas about architecture, design, and what our buildings really say about us. We're looking at Andrew Marvell's Upon Appleton House, and it all kicks off with one fascinating question. I mean, really think about that for a second. What if the most perfect, most efficient, and most beautiful structures on this planet were created without a single architect? No blueprints, no construction crews. Well, Marvell believed they were, and he used this poem to explore that exact idea. So the poem sets up this huge conflict, a kind of design showdown, if you will, between two totally different builders, us, humanity, and the natural world itself. This right here is the question at the absolute heart of the poem. Marvell is looking around at the grand palaces and manors of his time, and he's just baffled. Why, he asks, are we the only creatures on Earth who build things that are so ridiculously out of scale with who we are? It's a powerful critique of human vanity right from the get-go. All right, so let's dig into the problem as Marvell sees it. He paints let's just say, a very unflattering picture of human ambition and what happens when our ego becomes the main architect. And what's so interesting here is just how specific he gets. Marvell says our buildings are the work of a foreign architect, meaning they're totally disconnected from their environment. The builder vaults his own brain for a model. In other words, he builds from pure ego, not from necessity. And what's the result? These giant, hollow palaces where even the wind gets lost, built by people who demand way more space in life than they'll ever need in death. And this phrase just sums it all up, doesn't it? The central flaw of human design, according to the poem, is that it's superfluously spread. It's excessive, it's inefficient, and it's all just an attempt to project power and importance, completely disconnected from its real purpose. Okay, so that's the problem. Now let's flip the coin and look at the second builder in this story. Because out in the natural world, Marvell finds a completely different, and in his view, a far better, design philosophy at work. The difference is just stark, isn't it? Where we build these unproportioned dwellings, a bird creates an equal nest. It's perfectly sized. Where we build a hollow palace, a tortoise has its shell, a home that's perfectly custom fit. In nature, there is absolutely no wasted space. And this is the knockout punch. For every other living thing, form follows function perfectly. Their own bodies are the blueprint. They build or find exactly what they need, no more, no less. There's this incredible modesty and efficiency here that Marvell sees as both beautiful and deeply wise. But you know, this isn't just a poem tearing down humanity. He actually presents a solution, Appleton House itself. Yeah, it's a human-built home, but it's one that seems to have learned its lessons from the natural world. Its main design principle? Humility. Marvell defines this architectural humility with this beautiful idea that things greater are in less contained. It's the concept that true greatness, real beauty, isn't about being massive. It's about elegant, perfect proportion. It's about achieving more with less. So what does this ideal house actually look like? Well, first, it's like nature, orderly, and near. It doesn't impose itself on the landscape. It fits in. It feels like it belongs there. And second, it's a place where everything does answer use. There's no pointless decoration, no huge, empty halls just for show. Every single part of the house has a purpose. It's a tool for living, not a monument to pride. And finally, the house is a mark of grace. Its design isn't about showing off earthly power or wealth. Instead, it's a sign of the owner's inner virtue and their modesty. It's an outward expression of an inward quality. And that gets us to the final and maybe the most important point of the whole poem. For Marvell, a house is way more than just a building. It's a mirror. It is a direct reflection of the character and the philosophy of the person who lives inside. This line is the key to everything. Marvell is saying that real honor, real dignity, is found in lowness or humility, not in some showy, over-the-top greatness. The modest, perfectly proportioned house is a reflection of its honorable owner, Lord Fairfax, who'd famously retired from a big public career to live a quieter life on his estate. To really drive this point home, Marvell describes the house not as some permanent palace, but as an inn. It's just a temporary resting place on the much longer journey of life. This idea really reinforces that theme of humility, reminding us that all our grand projects, all our possessions, they're temporary. It's a profoundly philosophical way to think about a home. And so this 17th century poem leaves us with a question that feels incredibly relevant right here in the 21st century. If our homes, our offices, our cities, all our unproportioned dwellings are a reflection of our values, what exactly are we telling the world about ourselves? A pretty powerful thought from a poem written almost 400 years ago. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome to The Explainer, where we get into big ideas. And today, we're digging into a 17th century poem that, believe it or not, has a debate at its heart that feels super modern.
So let's just jump right in with that question. We're going to explore it through Andrew Marvell's really famous poem, The Garden, which was first published way back in 1681. And it really makes you think, what are you willing to give up for perfect, total peace?
So at first glance, the poem feels pretty familiar. It seems like one of those classic celebrations of, getting away from it all, escaping the crazy, ambitious world for some quiet time in nature. It really does start off exactly how you think it would.
And what Marvell was doing here, he was tapping into this super old tradition called pastoral poetry. I mean, this stuff goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks and Romans. They were always debating the same question. Is it better to live a quiet, thoughtful life or a busy, public one? Okay, but right when you're settling in, getting comfortable in this peaceful little world he's built, bam! Marvell throws this huge curveball. He starts to completely undermine the very tradition he just set up.
So, the first clue that something's a little off is how the speaker talks about love. A typical lover in one of these poems would be carving his girlfriend's name on a tree, talking about her rosy cheeks. But Marvell's speaker, he rejects all of that. He says the lovely green of the garden is way better than the white and red of a woman's complexion. He even thinks the trees themselves are more deserving of having their names carved.
Yeah, and he's not subtle about it at all. He literally calls lovers cruel for hurting the trees by carving names into them. He's straight up saying the beauty of these trees is far, far superior to any woman's. And that's when it hits you. Okay, this isn't just about getting away from the city. This is about getting away from romantic love, period.
This is where it gets really wild. He actually rewrites famous Greek myths to back up his argument. So the original stories, right? The gods Apollo and Pan are chasing these nymphs, who then turn into plants to get away. Well, Marvell just flips the whole thing on its head. He claims the gods were never actually interested in the women. They wanted the plants all along.
All right, so if our speaker is rejecting human romance, what's he embracing instead? This is where the poem takes another turn and gets even weirder, and honestly, a lot more intense. The garden itself, it stops being this, quiet backdrop for thinking. It becomes this active, physical, almost overwhelming force. It's like the garden itself is offering itself up to the speaker in this really sensuous, almost erotic way.
I mean, the imagery is just so lush, so abundant. Nature isn't just sitting there, it's actively providing for him. Fruit is literally dropping into his hands. It's this total fantasy of effortless pleasure. But just as we hit this peak of sensual overload, the poem drops a hint that something dangerous is lurking.
He stumbles, he gets ensnared by flowers, he falls. And this is no accident. Marvell is absolutely 100% using the language of the biblical fall of man in the Garden of Eden. He's connecting this intense physical pleasure directly to a kind of moral danger.
So what's the response to that dangerous physical fall? The speaker makes his next big move. He completely retreats from his body. He just escapes into the pure, quiet space of his own mind, where this whole big, overwhelming physical world gets boiled down to just a simple green thought. And this retreat, this move into the mind, it leads the speaker to what is, without a doubt, the poem's most controversial and, honestly, most revealing argument.
He just comes right out and says it. The true paradise, the absolute happiest state for humanity, it was the Garden of Eden, before Eve was created. So for Marvell's speaker, ultimate bliss is being completely, utterly alone.
This is it. This is the poem's ultimate vision. One critic called it a state of unsexual bliss where pleasure was solitary. I mean, that's a pretty radical way to rethink the entire foundational story of humanity, right? To suggest that getting a partner was actually a step down from perfection.
So, as you can probably guess, this whole idea of a women-free Eden, plus the poem's general vibe of being against women and sexuality, well, it's kicked off centuries of really intense debate among scholars.
And that's really why this poem is still so powerful, you know? It just refuses to be pinned down to one easy answer. So if you look at it through a gender and sexuality lens, critics ask, hey, is this rejection of women all about Marvell's own life? I mean, the guy never married. Or could it open the door to a homoerotic reading, where this male-gendered garden is offering a totally different kind of love? Then you've got the whole Christian context. The poem was published around the same time as Milton's epic Paradise Lost, and that sparked a huge debate. Which one came first? Are they talking to each other? Is Marvell trying to offer a totally different, more radical version of Eden than Milton's? And even more recently, you've got eco-critics who look at this poem and see it as this incredibly early piece of environmentalist thinking. They argue that Marvell is basically erasing the line between our minds and nature, saying that real spiritual insight doesn't come from rising above the physical world, but from becoming one with it.
So, in the end, the garden doesn't just hand us a simple answer. It leaves us with this big, powerful puzzle. It makes us look at our own lives and ask, what do we value more, solitude or society? Quiet thought or human connection? And that's a question that feels just as urgent and relevant right now as it must have way back in the 17th century.